Hey, good morning.
Hi, Dan. Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy, I guess, is this our second? No, this is our first show of April.
It is. Yeah, last week was the first, so
Yeah, but we
we
got the
took
day
that off.
off.
That was a holiday. I know.
I know. Shout out to QuestionPro for almost everyone doing a QuestionPro. Like everyone took a true QuestionPro holiday, went and did some shenanigans.
Yeah.
What did I do? I did things. I took a 2.5 hour long nap, which was like
Hey, that is something.
and then I went to a 6 a.m. workout. I went out to breakfast with a friend. Yeah, it was a good day. What'd you
Yeah, that
do?
was great. I think I just got ready for the weekend. That's all I did.
Yeah.
We we took the RV out of the trailer, so
Ooh,
went
where'd you
camping.
go?
We just went over to Georgetown, so not too far, like 30, 40 minutes from us. And
Oh,
then
okay.
but it's nice because there's the lake. Obviously, you can see I'm still burned from it, but that's all right.
Yeah.
And then
I
but
was
it's
like,
like
one of us has been in the sun and one of us is
I
still
know.
a winter vampire.
That was
Like,
funny. So no, but it's nice. Good lake there and stuff. So we had a good time.
cool.
And yeah, and yeah, I don't know what else. That's about what we did. So
I know some of the great things that we implemented for the summer, or even in our last Question Pro like roundup. One that I'm trying to enforce is no internal meetings on Fridays.
yeah.
That's been hard.
It has been hard because I have to think about no, I need to meet with you on Thursday because Friday I
I
can't
know.
meet with you. So
But the idea of like having it for like 4.5 hours of quiet work time this afternoon, I'm not gonna lie, it sounds
I
fantastic.
know. How long is your list? My list is pretty long of like things I need to get done. So
um, and then half day summers are starting here in June.
I know. All part of the great things we're doing at Question Pro,
I
right?
know. And we're hiring if anyone's watching this.
Yeah, pretty much all positions. So
Do
if you say
you
like,
need a job?
what are you hiring for? Everything, pretty much.
Everything.
So
Send
just
us
reach
your
out.
resume. We'll find you a spot.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Awesome. So yesterday I was up in Dallas. Yeah,
Really?
I went to the University of Texas, Arlington, and went to a conference there for their market research master's program.
That's so
Yeah, it
cool.
was really fun. So Scott Hansen runs the program up there. So he had a conference with different speakers and a lot of the students and alumni come back. So it was cool. It was fun to meet up with those
Really
guys and see
fun.
what's
So,
going on.
like market researchers, like mixers, like
Yeah,
a conference just for that's
just
very cool.
just for that program. So,
Okay, that's
but they have
cool.
like a lot of alumni that come back and speak. So it's good.
Wait, is that where you went?
Yeah, that's where I went. Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, yeah. It was like last. It was kind of last minute, so I went up there. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
really
You didn't
good.
ask for
So
me to send you any swag or anything.
well, I didn't have enough time,
I
so
know.
it was just like,
Um, Also, I hope, well, we can talk about this later, but I was like, we need to order new swag for all the people, all the new people joining.
yeah, I know,
We haven't
and
had to
we're
do
going to
that
be
in
at
a long time.
IIEX next week, so that's
I
coming
know.
up quick.
IIEX and CX forums. So if you are in Austin or Atlanta, let us know because we will have representation at both.
That's right. Actually, not. I said next week. I feel like it's a week. I guess a
Oh,
week
it's
and a
two
half.
weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks, or not
Week and a
quite
half.
2 weeks, like a week and a half, something like
Yeah,
that.
but
Yeah,
it's still, we still have another week in between and Easter in between.
and Easter. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And then next week, I'm doing a webinar with the MRI and
Oh,
Estelmar with Ray
yes.
Pointer. It's going to be around continuous discovery. And look at this. I even came prepared and I can drop this.
Oh, good. I was like, I don't have the link for that, Dan.
I can post
I
the
did not come
registration link
prepared
here.
today.
So I don't know if it posts on LinkedIn, but if not, we'll make sure it'll
Yeah.
be widely distributed, I'm sure, in the coming days. So register for that. Ray Pointer and I are going to be talking about continuous discovery and what that means, the process for it, and so
Right
forth.
here.
So definitely register for that. It's going to be an exciting time and something that we're going to be continuing to talk about here coming up. So
I love that. That'll be really fun. Ray Pointer always has some like I would say not hot takes, but he doesn't necessarily go with the flow.
no, he has some
He,
zingers, I'd
I
say.
know, and I like that. I like people who can stand their ground with the data. He always brings the data to back himself up.
No, he
He's like, I
does.
got receipts.
Yeah, I can prove it, right? Don't try to audit me. No, so that's coming up next week. That's great. And then we have IIEX. And then, yeah, lots of things happening this year. So definitely excited about
There's
what's to
also
come.
a CX webinar on April 27th, bringing in it's the sports themed about your customer experience and with sports.
Well, that's awesome.
Mediums?
Oh, I did see that. Yeah, with Ken's doing that, right?
I will find the link for that too. So there is a lot of things coming up. We're kind of getting back in our, like, I would say, live event routine, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, let's get into it, huh? So today, Crystal, we're going to be talking with you.
Woo!
And I thought we could kind of change things up a little bit here. I know from time to time we've had QuestionPro employees come on, but
Yeah.
I think I wanted to showcase you, Crystal, and the great work that you're doing here at QuestionPro. And to, oh wait, I just got a message. Jeez.
That means I have to listen to the questions you ask. Sometimes I don't do that.
What? Truth is coming out now. Did you? Sorry, I just got a message. We're not streaming on LinkedIn anymore. So.
Oh no! Let me see. That it happened to Experience Matters last week.
Oh, did it really?
There's been an API issue with LinkedIn and StreamYard. So we'll post this video after. Yeah, we only streamed for a minute.
Yeah,
we will post the video on LinkedIn afterwards for anyone who was there and then not there now. I don't know how to fix this in live time. This is a new problem. The error of streaming still gets us. It's not perfect yet.
Well, we'll post just the interview portion on LinkedIn. How about that? That'll be good. And then,
right.
Yeah, because this is like,
well, good thing it's me. Good thing it's just me.
Yeah, the show must go on. Okay.
What a week for it not to work.
All right. Well, let's get going here. So today we're interviewing Crystal Wiese around her background, what she's doing at QuestionPro, and really showcasing a great QuestionPro employee. You're right, that mug is a little aggressive, but that's all right. So that's what we wanted to do today. So from time to time, I talk with QuestionPro employees to help showcase them and the work they're doing. So I guess, Crystal, let's start it off. So what's your background? Where did you get started? How did you get started in marketing?
Whew. Well, I can tell you, if you want to go all the way back, it was when I was driving through Missouri.
No, we don't need to go that far back. No.
Well, but the reason I got into marketing was one day I was, or advertising really was when I was about 15, we were on a road trip and I saw these like 9 billboards promoting Dr. Pepper, maybe like 3 miles down the road. My friend went, "Oh, we're stopping at the, truck stop. I'm going to grab a Dr. Pepper." And I literally was sitting there like, holy moly, all those random billboards totally worked.
It works, yeah.
Right? That subconscious marketing really, I was like, I want to do that. I want to convince people of things, which looking back, I also like debated on being a lawyer. So,
I mean, pretty, yeah.
Yeah. And then I was post-college in the recession of 2010, I started working in startups because I was 21 with a advertising degree and nobody really wanted to hire a 21-year-old to run, $1 million advertising campaigns. And then I really fell in love with the analytics of advertising, which I think is how once digital came full speed ahead, this is the very beginning of Twitter and Facebook and people really starting to monetize YouTube as opposed to just posting videos. And when you could see that monetization and that tracking ability combined with traditional advertising, that's when I really found my love for marketing, I would say. And that's where I think people forget to people think that marketing is so analytics based when it's really the perfect marriage of creativity and analytics.
So do you like more of the digital side or do you like other aspects?
I mean, as somebody who's also done live commercial shoots and been on 12-hour long sets or 10-hour long sets, yeah, I like the digital side because I don't have to stand on set. Right. But, there is something romantic about those traditional advertising days. The one thing I still wish there would have been a class on was fragrance commercials. Those are still so weird if you watch them.
Yeah.
And there never was like this is what we do kind of like, but I think there is something romantic about traditional advertising, but at the end of the day, marketing and being able to prove your value like makes me more satisfied.
Got it. That makes sense. So you've been in, I know obviously your background a little bit, but you've been in some interesting industries. And then even before coming into this industry, how's that prepared you for working in the market research industry?
So my first corporate job was working in a company that built eco-friendly trade show booths and doing advertising and actually setting those up on trade show floors. And then I went into machine learning at a photography studio, and we were a combination of photography studio and tech startup, where if you like the shirt you're wearing, Dan, if you went to like plaidshirts.com and based on your cookies and your browsing history, the photography studio would have taken 15 photos of that shirt in different models, and then based on your browsing history, that algorithm would have assigned one of those models to show you.
One that looks like me.
It was what?
Would it be like someone that looks like me? Is that what you're saying? Oh.
So someone that you would more likely relate to based on your cookies and, browsing history. And that was, I was an employee, but I was like employee number one. So I learned how to do outbound sales. I was running our online store. I built Shopify stores. I helped in the photography studio. It was so fun. And we raised a seed round and an angel round, but then trying to sell the idea of photography studio and tech company together was really difficult because people just didn't understand fashion, or they understood one but not the other. Then
it's kind of interesting mix because you have the art side, right? And then you have the tech side. So how does that come together? I could see that.
Yeah, it was definitely a wild ride. And that is where I actually met, I guess I owned my own company in between there too. I didn't even talk about that. That's not a thing. And then I met someone who was working in blockchain and cryptocurrency in 2014, 15. And I went and did that for 6 years and learned a lot about startups, learned a lot about raising rounds of financing, learned a lot about how to pivot very quickly, and kind of learned to have some thick skin. And that working in emerging technologies like machine learning and blockchain or blockchain and finance really made me value stability. But also value room to have autonomy and take risk while still keeping your eye on the prize.
Got it. That makes sense. I think you just like working in nuanced industries, niche industries that challenge yourself.
They are very niche, and they're all data based.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, with the algorithm and the machine learning and then blockchain.
They're all big data kind of based.
So what's been some challenges learning the market research industry?
Big sigh. The nuance, I think.
We only have 15 minutes. So
I know. I think it's the nuance. And the market research industry, unlike machine learning or blockchain, or I, was helping teach kids how to code, is so old. Not in in a good way. You're coming into something that has a lot of it's kind of like the mortgage industry. You're coming into something that has a lot of prestige behind it, a lot of traditions, a lot of best practices. And when you're trying to either build on those best practices or ask questions why those are best practices, it definitely you have to find the right lanes and the right mentors to say, okay, I hear why you're pushing back, but here's why we do it this way. I think is why I like Ray Pointer so much.
Yeah.
Right? Because you and whenever you guys do a talk, it's you can bring a fresh perspective, and he doesn't ever, I would say, doesn't talk down to you, And that's where I think in the market research space, trying to find mentors for young people coming into the market has been an interesting challenge. But once you find them, then you're like, okay, great. Because you can't just tear everything down, right? You can't just like be like, it's all wrong. Let's start from scratch. And so finding the right space to market new ideas while respecting the heritage of the industry has probably been one of the biggest challenges.
Interesting. There is a lot of truth to that, because even when you think about the research industry, there's a lot of like tried and true methods, and people are slow to adopt change. So I think it definitely makes sense what you're saying, especially if it's even on the marketing side as opposed to the method side. So
I think if the pandemic hadn't happened, so I remember like my first week, I was so confused when y'all were talking about like paper surveys and like doing surveys on street corners and like really not being digital first.
Yeah.
I think if the pandemic hadn't happened, I would have had a lot harder time learning the industry because my whole perspective is digital first. And so the pandemic kind of forced that change. And I was like, oh, cool, I can go with this.
That's good. That's interesting. Actually, I didn't think about that. So would you say those are some of the quirks of the industry that you had to get used to? Or is it, were you able to pull from like,
quirks, that's funny. That makes me laugh every time.
or was that like, I mean, because the mortgage industry, the blockchain industry, obviously they have their quirks and things you need to learn, but did that translate over at all for learning this industry?
Yeah, I think so when I was in the blockchain industry specifically, I helped run our mortgage vertical. So how do you track titles or mortgage payments on a blockchain? So I worked in I went to a lot of big finance companies and learned a lot from the industry pillars kind of, and that being able to respect my elders and the wisdom that they bring was definitely something that translated well into market research, while being able to say, okay, I see the history of like how we've done market research, advertising or marketing in the past. How can we then, a lot of it's more augmenting it instead of just like disregarding it.
Right. I think it makes sense. That makes sense. And then I think you'll see the continued change in marketing, and let me know what you think about this. You'll see a change in marketing, especially with the rise of, ResTech and all the money coming in here. It's going to produce already has produced a lot of startups, and they'll bring new methods. And with that comes, new marketing methods as well. So what are your thoughts there?
I mean, yeah, I think that's going to happen. People trying to do TikTok and more consumer, like direct to consumer for market research. Like, I don't even know how that would work. And I think that is marketing is marketing, right? Like you apply the same practices to different outlets. And so how we distribute our brand and narratives and personas will always change. What your core objectives are, like bringing in new leads, boosting up your corporate branding, hitting your MQLs, like those all say the same. And so, but I will offer some warning to people coming out here, like in all these new startups that are very niche. I would say you're seeing a lot of people really hang their hat on an NPS question. That's all their company does. Or they're hanging their hat on, market research for Gen Zers. Like Gen Zers will grow up. Like, are you, and so be careful making sure that you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like the industry's been around for hundreds of years. You haven't. And so like, how do you respect the nuance of the industry while still trying to push boundaries? I think is going to be something that old school market researchers and new school marketing teams are really going to have to learn to work together, not against each other.
Got it. Do you think it's like, hey, I need to allocate like 20 to 30% of like for new methods and then stick to the whatever the 70 to 80% on traditional, or how would you break that up?
I think that's like the most market researcher question. Like, give me an exact number.
I need numbers. I need percentages here.
I think it's more like do it per quarter. A great example of what we did was like last year, we went all in on Clubhouse for like a quarter.
Right.
Right. And now it's kind of like, okay, that worked. It didn't work. Let's stop doing it. If you can really track the efforts and outcomes of something, then just go all in on it for like 3 months. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't, like, it's not a failure, but it wasn't, just because it wasn't successful doesn't mean it was a failure.
That's true. I agree. 100% agree with that. Yeah.
And so I think that it's like, it may not be like 30% and 70%, but it's like, hey, this new thing came, Twitter Spaces is out. Let's run 5 Twitter Space shows over the next 30 days, see what engagement we get with them, and then allocate, okay, what's the objective of those projects or those like kind of like whimsy shot in the dark things? Because a lot of times people do shot in the dark things with no objective and no like what does success mean? And success might just mean, hey, we did it. Success might mean one person commented. Don't put your success objectives so far out that you'll never hit them. And that, I think, is because you have stuff everyone can do the Google ads and the webinars and you have your tried and true stuff. Put big objectives to things that you have like operationalized.
Right.
But if you're going to do like 70-30, that's constantly going to change because new outlets change. So one quarter, it may only be 10% of new ideas, or you need more revenue. So you're like, I'm not doing anything new. I'm sticking to tried and true.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. I like that. And I know one thing that I've enjoyed is seeing all the different things that you're implementing and trying. Like, we need to do this. We need to try that. Hey, this live with Dan came because Chris said, you guys should do a live show. So a lot of those things have come out of, trying these different things. And you're right. I love that you said, hey, it's a risk and you're going to take risks. You're not going to succeed all the time. That doesn't mean you failed. It just didn't work out and you can try something new. So,
and I think that's something a lot of people don't put with marketing because they don't think of marketing as creativity. Right. And so it's like, okay, I need to keep my numbers up. I need to report findings. I need to da. And it's like, okay, but does Twitter even measure that right now if you're doing Twitter Spaces? A lot of times what you're measuring can only be measured by the platform that you're doing it on. And if those platforms don't have the measurements required, then you kind of have to like work within that segment, but also make sure that you're not discrediting yourself for the effort and time that you're putting into something, and be proud of it, even if it doesn't necessarily like moonshot.
Right. And I think a lot of the things, that you've done is like with brand awareness and so forth. And brand awareness is such a hard thing to measure, right? It's so, to me, it seems so anecdotal unless you can tie something to it that I don't know about. But what do you say to that? Like, how can you tell your brand awareness is going up? Is it followers, page views, things like that? Or what do you look at?
For me, I rely a lot, 1, on anecdotal, and 2, on the health of the overall business. And so with QuestionPro particularly, you can kind of see, not only do we get like anecdotal stories now of like, hey, you guys are everywhere, which is like a great thing to hear, but you also can see our MQLs, like our marketing qualified leads, I'm not going to shorthand it for anyone out there. We can see more qualified people coming in. It may be less, but they're more qualified. And I think that people always say, like advertising can't be measured. Like you don't know what 50% you're measuring. And I think that's just kind of lazy excuse because they didn't put the thoughts into, okay, if we're going to go to a conference, like we're going to IIEX, how do we measure success at IIEX? And put those implements in before you're going, and also making sure your marketing team is communicating with all your other stakeholders, because unless Dan and I talked regularly, I wouldn't have those anecdotal stories. Right. And so making sure that you're talking with your kind of your upper echelon or your C levels, I think that's where sometimes marketing teams get too leveled, right? Like it's like, okay, well, the CMO only interacts with these people, and all those stories of brand goodness get kind of watered down the farther down the pipeline the story goes, or they get built up. It can go one or two ways.
Built up, like We had a
I'm always
500% increase. Yeah.
I try to, and Dan will vouch for this. I try not to be a Debbie Downer when it comes to like that one story that people are like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, but you told that story 5 times. Like it doesn't count anymore.
You should probably get someone else.
And so, making sure that you're kind of allocating the right levels to that, but also look at your overall brand picture, from 2019 when I started to now, we're doing X amount of things. Our, book of business has grown. All of those, it can't be one thing. It's like a culmination of a lot of things.
Interesting. No, that makes a lot of sense. And, I think we should start something, the Roy Kent metric, because you said, we're everywhere. And that reminds me of like the Roy Kent, from
Ted Lasso?
Yeah, from Ted Lasso, like the saying, like he's everywhere.
Oh yeah,
Like
the little
chant.
chant.
I don't want to say the chant here, but
I think
that
there's
reminded me of
cursing
it.
in the chant.
Yeah. So I'm going to call it the Roy Kent metric, the brand awareness.
Yeah.
Measures,
That's
measures
fun.
to success. There we go. So, what are wrapping up here? What are some opportunities that you see that we haven't maybe done yet, or some opportunities that you see in the market that we should take advantage of, or anybody listening?
One thing that we said we were going to do, we haven't done it yet. Thankfully, it's only Q2, just started, is we do want to bring back Twitter Spaces. I think audio marketing is going to be a big thing in the future. We already see it with podcasts. We see it with live spaces going on. I don't think it's a pandemic specific flash in the pan. Clubhouse shouldn't have been a product. It should have been a feature kind of thing. And so it's just that's going to be, audio advertising or marketing. I think is going to be a big thing, especially because you can transcribe audio chats, which means they can be indexed by Google. Google is already indexing podcast if you like search things. So really think about how Google's working in it's like nobody wants to be like handcuffed by Google, but that's the reality. And so think about those, like how trends can turn into long-term strategies that. And then I think it's going to be a more technical play. How is your website responding on user experience? How is your content responding on user experience? Making sure you're going mobile first. I know that's something that I constantly forget about because I'm a desktop kind of person. Right. So making sure you're thinking mobile first. A lot of those whatever is below millennials, because that's what I am, and I forget what's left. Whatever your daughters are, like they're mobile first, and mobile being an iPad, right? And even the new iPads that are bigger are still technically considered mobile.
Right.
And so really thinking audio, mobile first, and consumable short bits of content. I think when market researchers can add some whimsy to their B2B strategies, that's when they're really going to see an uptick in their engagements and their brand awareness. B2B marketing is sometimes too stodgy for its own good. And so how do you add some whimsy and some shenanigans into those traditional outlets? Because nobody's going to discredit you for making them chuckle.
Right.
No one's going to be like, oh, those people are dumb, because in their mind, they're like, that's
they made me laugh. They're dumb, right?
Right? Like nobody's going to discredit you for being human. So make sure that you add some whimsy into that B2B strategy, because at the end of the day, like Dan scrolls Instagram like everybody else, and Dan's a B2B buyer technically. Right. And so, or me, I scroll Instagram. I don't have TikTok, but, we're all doom scrolling something, whether that be LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram. So don't create personas for B2B marketing that are so white collar that they don't feel accessible.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I think that's a perfect place to wrap it up, because you had so many good insights and hot takes there, but I think it's great. I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
And this is probably the most serious one of the whole lot here. So a little birdie told me that you believe that birds are robots. Is that true?
Favorite conspiracy of all time. And it's growing on Instagram.
I know.
I do not believe that birds are robots.
Okay.
But there is a large movement of conspiracy theorists that do, because whenever Reagan was president, before I was born, he released them to monitor the American humans. And I love it so much.
You know a lot about this for not believing in it.
I know. It also shows you what kind of family I come from. We all love like weird conspiracy theories.
I like it. Awesome. Well, thanks, Crystal. Appreciate it as always. And
and Dan, are we back next week?
I think next week we might be off for Good Friday.
Great. Holiday weekend, you guys.
I know. So yeah, I think we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Awesome. Well,
right.
I loved chatting with you, and I'll talk to you later.
This sounds great. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Crystal.
Bye.